Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast, brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer created exclusively for Walt Disney World weddings and vow renewals. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I share real-world planning advice and money-saving tips from couples who've celebrated at Disney parks and resorts and on the Disney Cruise Line. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast shares real experiences and expert insights from Disney destinations around the world. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Matty Salahub about her ceremony at Seabreeze Point with a reception at Ariel's. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Matty.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Thanks so much for being on the show. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
Absolutely. That was 100% all me. I have been born and raised in a Disney family since the day I was born. We grew up going to Disneyland and Disney World several times a year. We did everything. We did birthdays there. We did Christmases there. I was lucky enough to partake in the Disney College program twice in Orlando, working in food and beverage. And then I was working at Disney stores here in Canada, and it just was something that was adapted into our everyday life. And then I met Jordan, and our first trip was to Walt Disney World to do the Disney Princess Half Marathon weekend. And he fell in love with it ever since. And we became DVC members, and we got engaged at Alani. So having a Disney wedding was just the icing on the cake. It was perfect for us.
That's awesome. So then how did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
My friends and family were not surprised at all. They knew from the day I was born that I was going to have a Disney wedding, and they would have been more surprised if I told them we weren't doing one. And Jordan's family, his immediate family, was excited, but a lot of his extended family and friends were very hesitant because they didn't grow up in the Disney bubble like we did. So they weren't really sure what to expect, but once everybody got there, everybody loved it. They had a great time.
That's fantastic. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
We sent out a soft invite to a bunch of people to see who would actually be wanting to come and kind of make the travel, since we are mostly coming from Western Canada. So we did an initial engagement party, and that was kind of a soft invite, and there was well over 150 people. So we did another soft invite a little bit later, sent out about 50 invitations, and then we had 19 total coming, including Jordan and myself.
Got it. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
We initially were going to, but then because we're DVC members, we used a lot of our points to host our family, and because it was mostly family going, everyone stayed in DVC rooms, or they went in on hotels on the park together, so we didn't end up needing to do one.
How did you decide on the day of the week and time of day for your event?
We knew that we wanted a weekday just because it is a destination wedding for all of our guests. So whether it was a weekend or a weekday, it really didn't matter because our friends were extending it into a vacation anyway. But we definitely wanted to do a brunch reception. Jordan and I worked a lot of weddings, and we have done all dinner receptions, and our big date nights are going out for brunch and breakfast, and that's our favorite time. So we wanted to make sure that was very heavily involved in our day. So we decided that we were going to do a brunch on a Tuesday.
How did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
That was a lot based around my dress and then just our love of the ocean and marine conservation. We really wanted to include a lot of coral reef and under the sea aspects to our wedding, and the view and the location of Seabreeze Point was absolutely perfect. And then the decor of Ariel's just fit in, and everything flowed so nicely that it was a no-brainer for us. We really didn't want to look at any other venues after we saw those two.
That's wonderful. Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
We did. So we had Kat and Carly from Fairy Tale Hair and Makeup, and they were absolutely phenomenal. Very high energy and bubbly, which was amazing at 2:30 in the morning. They were great, and they did an amazing job with myself and my team. And then, of course, we used Nick and Prince from Merrily Married for photo and video, and I can't say enough great things about them. I could not imagine our day any differently if we didn't have them. They were such a great addition to our wedding. And then everything else, our florals and that, were done by Jordan. He made them all himself. So it was pretty DIY and pretty personal.
Wow, that's awesome. How did you guys choose your officiant?
We chose Catherine Tiamundi, mostly from the Diz Brides group and listening to this podcast from the very beginning, and did a lot of research with her and going through her website. And we had an initial phone conversation with her, and she became one of my vendors. That was a non-negotiable for us, and she booked us in way in advance. So we were very happy that we were able to get her.
What kind of entertainment did you have at the ceremony and the reception?
We did a lot of our own music, so we downloaded the music that we wanted for the ceremony and sent it to Disney to have it play through the AV equipment they have there. And then they gave us a violinist for the ceremony as well. And he did such a fantastic job. We actually didn't know that he was going to be at the ceremony, but he played over our music that we had provided, and it sounded absolutely beautiful. I was a little bit concerned on how it was going to sound, but it flowed so nicely, and it was a really nice surprise to the ceremony, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And then we did an evening dessert cruise with our guests, but other than that, we really didn't add too much.
Did you do a DJ at the reception?
We didn't, no. We just stuck with the background music that played in Ariel's. It was just very simple and very elegant and allowed us to better mix and mingle with our guests.
Got it. Do you have any menu items or cake flavors from your reception that you would recommend?
Oh, absolutely. I love sweets. I love sugar. So the cake was a number one priority for me. And we got to go and do a cake tasting the year before. And we ended up with the Florida orange cake with the tropical mousse and then a pistachio cake with a guava cream cheese. And I still have dreams about that cake. It was so delicious. It was so good. And then for our actual brunch reception, Disney did a fantastic job at providing the pastries they used to have at the Bon Voyage brunch, the character breakfast. So they recreated those and brought those into our wedding. And between that and the Mickey waffle bar with all of the fixins and the berries and the syrup and the whipped cream, it was absolutely perfect.
Can you tell my listeners a bit about the fireworks cruise that you added?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did it in the evening, and we rented 2 of the pontoon boats that go around Seven Seas Lagoon. And we realized that the day that we booked it, it was doing a Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party that night. So not only did we get the amazing, beautiful fireworks, but they actually piped in the Halloween soundtrack onto the boats that we were on, so we could hear the Halloween show going and seeing the fireworks. And then everyone was able to bring their own snacks and their own drinks, and we got a nice little tour of the lagoon, and it was a good way to kind of bring everybody together.
That sounds great. So how did you guys decide to do a Trash the Dress session at Typhoon Lagoon instead of a more traditional portrait session inside one of the parks?
When I did my first Disney College program back in 2016, I was originally hired on as a lifeguard in Typhoon Lagoon, but I went under a medical procedure that didn't allow me to be a lifeguard, but Disney did an amazing job with allowing me to stay in the water parks, which was a number one possibility. If I could be in the water parks, that's where I wanted to be. So they kept me in the water parks in food and beverage. And I got to spend the summer at Typhoon Lagoon in the water parks, and it was the best summer of my life. So when we booked our Disney wedding and we wanted to look into doing photography and the in-park photo sessions, I told Jordan, what do you think of doing a Trash the Dress session at Typhoon Lagoon? And he loved the idea. He hopped on it right away. And we reached out to Disney Fine Art Photography to see if it was a possibility. And they had said originally that they hadn't done that particular photo shoot since pre-COVID. So they said they would talk to everyone that they needed to talk to and get back to us. And they came back to us, and we found out that our session got approved about 3 weeks before we were going for the wedding. And it was the most amazing news I probably could have ever gotten on my wedding day. It was such a fun opportunity being in the water parks before they opened with nobody else there and just Jordan and myself. And the photos turned out absolutely beautiful. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
That's fantastic. And I always have to ask, did the dress actually get trashed or was it okay afterward?
It actually was cleaner than when it went in. All of the tulle and nothing was damaged on it. Nothing was ripped. Nothing was torn. But it did come out about 6 shades whiter than when it went in.
That's so funny. Oh, all the chemicals they put in the water.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you give my listeners a timeline of how your wedding day ran?
Yeah, so we did a rehearsal the day before the wedding from 1 till 2 with all of our vendors to kind of see where everything was going and how we were going to be set up for the actual wedding day. And then we did a unofficial rehearsal dinner at Enzo's Hideaway Tunnel Bar with all of our wedding party. And we just did wine and appies and a couple pizzas and that for everyone to mix and mingle and enjoy as like a thank you to them. And then we did a very early night that night because hair and makeup on our wedding day started at the very bright and early 2:30 in the morning. And we had Kat and Carly show up and set up, and they did all of the hair and makeup for my bridal team and myself. And then we had Nick and Prince show up at 6:30 for getting ready photos and videos and the Princess Diaries reveal photo, and did everything they needed to do with us, and then went over to do the getting ready photos with Jordan and his groomsmen at 8:15. And then once they had taken all of Jordan's photos, they came back to me at the boardwalk because Jordan and I were at separate resorts, and did a first look with my dad at about 8:45 in the boardwalk in Gardens. It was absolutely beautiful, beautiful location to do that. And so we did the first look with my dad, and then we had a little bit of time. And before we walked over to Seabreeze Point, the ceremony started about 9:30 and went till about 10:15. So we had our whole ceremony there, and then we did our first dance at Seabreeze Point, and I did my father-daughter dance at Seabreeze as well before we moved over to Ariel's. We had our reception at about 10:30 till 1:30 roughly, and did our cocktail hour there and our cake cutting and mixing and mingling with all of our guests. And then after the reception, we did all of our photos with our friends and family in Ariel's and just outside on the boardwalk. And then Jordan and I went off with Nick and Prince and did a bunch of photos around all of the resorts and on the Skyliner and on the monorail, and did a bunch of that till about 6:15. And then we had a bit of a break where we got to check into the Polynesian. We were able to get into the new DVC tower for our wedding night, which we were very excited about. So we went and checked into our room and got everything organized there. And then at about 8:15, 8:30, we met everybody in the Grand Floridian lobby to do our dessert cruise. And we went around and did that. And that was till about roughly 10:30, 11-ish. And then we did a couple photos with all of our friends and family with the boats and in the Grand Floridian lobby. And that pretty much concluded our night. And everyone went back to the resorts, and then we met up again in Magic Kingdom the next day.
Got it. Okay. Now I want to highlight something for people who are listening who might think, well, why did they do their first dances at Seabreeze Point? This is a really great way to save on having a musician at your reception, because then you can just use the musician who comes included in your ceremony. You can do your dances at your ceremony venue if it allows, and then you can go on to the reception. Now, you also mentioned that you didn't have a DJ at your reception. So how did that work for your crowd? Because I know a lot of times people are worried, oh, my guests will be bored if I don't have a lot of entertainment for them.
It actually worked really well for us. We were a little worried because we originally had a 4-hour reception, and then we brought it down to 3 hours. And we were worried that it was going to be too much time and our guests were going to get bored. But our guests were really good at communicating with us and talking to each other. And then with the cake and the mimosa bar and just all of the decor and our guest book and everything, there was always lots to talk about and lots to do. So we really didn't need to worry about adding the extra time or adding any entertainment, because we're such a small, intimate group. We were very open and engaging, and we really didn't notice.
That's great to hear. So out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
There's so many. There's so many. It was absolutely a perfect day. But aside from of course, the obvious answer for Jordan and I was seeing each other walk down the aisle for the first time. That's always going to be our favorite memory, and mine specifically when I got to the edge of Seabreeze Point. And that was when Catherine turned him around to see me for the first time. So I was able to get a really good look at his face and his reactions. And it was just the reaction that I was hoping for. So it was the highlight to my day and the main thing that I will remember about our wedding forever. But aside from that, our cake, our cake was the best thing. We had been dreaming about that cake for a year, and we gave Disney the full creativity with the design. We had a couple things that we wanted, but they did such a beautiful job, and it was so gorgeous. It was the highlight, one of the highlights to our day.
Okay, so when you were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event? You mentioned the cake.
Yes, food and beverage was a big one for sure. Our group is big. We're big wine drinkers, and we do wine and dine, and we eat and drink around the world at Epcot. Food is a big part of our relationship and our family, and trying different foods from around the world. And so that was something that was number one. We really wanted to make sure that our guests were well fed with really good food, and Disney did a great job with that. For me, again, the dress photo session was super important for me, just because it was very sentimental to my college program and a great experience that I had with Disney. And then we really wanted to make sure that we had fireworks included in our day, rather it was doing an in-park dessert party or doing the pontoon dessert cruise. We just wanted to make sure that in some way we had that involved in our day, and we did.
Were there any aspects that were less important, where you saved your money or just your effort?
Adding characters to the wedding wasn't a huge priority, so that was a big savers for us there. And then anything to do with upgrading the cutlery and charger plates and upgrading linens and stuff like that, little details like that that we don't remember to this day. I couldn't tell you what color my cutlery was for the wedding, so we didn't bother upgrading that because we knew it wouldn't be something as memorable that we needed to do.
Did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Not really, no. We had a small hiccup with our first dance song, but it turned more into a comedic moment than it did something wrong. The song that we had downloaded was Steal the Show by Lau from the movie Elemental, and we didn't realize that the version that we had downloaded was the version directly from the movie, so we had all the commentary from the characters in the background when we were dancing. So for those that have seen the movie, they know kind of what's happening and the conversations going on in that song. So it was actually very funny. There's a lot of really good photos of Jordan and I in our first dance where we're just in stitches. We're just laughing so hard. So it wasn't really something that went wrong. It was definitely unexpected, but it turned into a really funny moment, which was great. And then I think the only thing that we really didn't consider was the 9:30 a.m. ceremony was great, but we didn't realize how early the girls would have to wake up. So that was very unexpected when we got the timeline from hair and makeup, and they're like, we'll be there at 2:30. So, but it all worked out. Everybody was there, and we had coffee, and it was perfect.
Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then turned out not to be a big deal?
Weather. Weather was a big one. It's a very common one, I know, for all of our Disney brides, but I spent weeks stressing about the weather. It said that the entire time we were going to be there was thunderstorming and raining and lightning, and being an outdoor wedding, I was stressing very much about that because I didn't want to end up having to get moved indoors for the ceremony or anything like that. But we got very lucky on the day of our wedding. It was not super hot at all, and we didn't have rain till the tail end of our photos, and it was a nice little drizzle, so it actually made the photos look even more beautiful.
Oh, that's great. Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Definitely would have added that additional hour back to the reception. Having 3 hours for brunch with our group, just it felt like it went by so fast, and I feel like I didn't eat near as much as my wedding food as I would have wanted to, but definitely adding that extra hour I think would have been a really good addition. And then if we did it all over again, I would have liked to try and do a welcome party in Animal Kingdom. We were originally going to do that, and then we just decided to cancel that because people were coming in at a bunch of different times, and there was no real set itinerary for our family until closer to the wedding, so we didn't really want to risk it, but I think I would add that for the next time. And then, as I'm sure everybody knows on this show, but do not change your room on your wedding day. It was not something that we were going to do initially, but we got the opportunity to do the new DVC tower and we had to take it. And that meant transferring rooms on the wedding day, but it was well worth it in the end. It was an absolutely beautiful room.
Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
Yes, absolutely. I know a lot of people think Disney wedding and everyone just sees price tags, but it is a very attainable. If a Disney wedding is your dream, you shoot for the stars and you go for it and you make it happen, because Disney has an amazing team that will work with you no matter what your budget is. And I could not imagine doing a wedding outside of Disney. It was so stressless, and we had a bunch of people that were willing to step in and take care of everything for us so that we didn't have to. And personally speaking, it is the best way that you could possibly get married, because it's so perfect and everything is so flawless, and Disney just does a fantastic job. So if you want a Disney wedding, absolutely go for it. Shoot for the stars, make your dreams come true, and make it happen.
That's great advice. Well, Matty, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for having me on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. You can find past episodes and photo galleries for each show at DisneyWeddingPodcast.com or listen wherever you get your podcasts. For even more inspiration and planning tips, follow the Disney Wedding Podcast and Fairy Tale Weddings Guide on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, download the ebook version of Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.